Welcome back to America Daily, where we break down the world's most complex news into something you can actually understand. I want to talk to you about something that sounds like a contradiction so massive, it shouldn't even be possible. Two powerful nations agree to a ceasefire, and then continue firing at each other anyway. War and peace, happening at the same time. In one of the most important waterways on Earth, the Strait of Hormuz, ships are moving through waters that carry nearly 20% of the world's oil supply. That's roughly 20 million barrels of oil every single day passing through a space so narrow, you could almost see both sides from the deck of a ship. Now think about that for a moment. A single disruption here doesn't just affect one country, it shakes the entire global economy. Oil prices spike. Stock markets fall. Fuel costs rise. And suddenly, millions of people who have never even heard of this place start feeling its impact in their daily lives. And yet, despite all of this, there's officially a ceasefire in place. But here's the reality. Missiles are being intercepted. Drones are being shot down. Threats are being issued that sound anything but peaceful. So here's the paradox that should keep you thinking. If there is a ceasefire, why does everything look and feel like war is escalating? How can both things be true at the same time? The obvious answer and why it's wrong. Now, the obvious answer might seem simple. You might say, maybe the ceasefire is broken. That sounds logical, right? If people are shooting, the peace must be over. But here's where it gets interesting. In global politics, things are rarely that straightforward. A ceasefire isn't always a complete stop. It's often more like a fragile pause. A line drawn in the sand that both sides interpret differently. Let's use a simple analogy. Imagine you and someone else agree to stop arguing. You both say, okay, no more fighting. But then, you keep making small comments. They respond with sarcasm. You push a little. They push back. Technically, you're not arguing anymore. But are you really at peace? Of course not. Now scale that up, from two people, to two nations with massive militaries, advanced weapons, and global influence. That's where the simple explanation breaks down. Because at this level, a ceasefire isn't just about stopping bullets. It's about control, messaging, and perception. And that's where the real story begins. Layer by layer reveal. Layer 1, the illusion of peace. Let's start with the first layer. A ceasefire, in many cases, is not about ending conflict. It's about managing it. Think about that for a moment. When leaders announce a ceasefire, they're not just speaking to each other. They're speaking to the world. They're signaling to markets. To allies. To their own citizens. Because the moment a war is officially declared active, the consequences explode. Global markets panic. Oil prices surge uncontrollably. International pressure increases. Alliances get pulled into the conflict. So instead, what happens? Both sides operate in a gray zone. They avoid crossing certain lines, but continue pushing right up against them. Shots are fired, but not enough to trigger full-scale war. Threats are made, but carefully worded. It's like walking on a tightrope, one wrong move, and everything collapses. Layer 2, power through uncertainty. Here's where it gets fascinating. Uncertainty itself becomes a weapon. When no one knows whether the ceasefire is holding or collapsing, it creates tension, not just between the two nations, but across the entire world. Oil traders react instantly. Investors pull back. Governments prepare for worst-case scenarios. And that uncertainty gives both sides leverage. Because they don't need to start a full war to create global impact. They just need to make the world think war might happen. That's the twist. Power is no longer just about military strength. It's about controlling the narrative. Layer 3, the human story. Now let's bring this down to a human level. Imagine a truck driver named Raj. He doesn't follow global politics every day. He's not tracking military movements or diplomatic statements. All he knows is this. Last week, filling his truck cost him one amount. This week, it costs significantly more. Why? Because oil prices went up. Why did oil prices go up? Because something happened in a place thousands of kilometers away, in a narrow stretch of water he's never seen. Now Raj has to make decisions. Should he take fewer trips? Charge more for deliveries? Or absorb the loss himself? And here's the paradox. His life is being affected by a conflict that is officially not even happening. This is how deeply interconnected the world has become. A non-war in one region can quietly reshape the lives of millions elsewhere. 4. The mind shift conclusion, 3 minutes. So let's put all the layers together. We started with a contradiction. A ceasefire that looks like war. Then we saw why the obvious explanation doesn't hold up. And finally, we uncovered the deeper truth. Modern conflict isn't just about fighting, it's about operating in the space between war and peace. Here's the core idea you need to understand. In today's world, power doesn't always come from pulling the trigger. Sometimes, it comes from almost pulling it. From creating just enough tension to influence markets. Just enough uncertainty to shift global behavior. Just enough pressure to stay in control, without triggering full-scale consequences. Think about that for a moment. Beat. War is no longer a simple on-off switch. It's a spectrum. And what we're seeing here is something right in the middle. Not peace. Not war. But something far more complex. And once you see it this way, everything changes. You stop looking at headlines as simple facts. You start seeing them as signals, moves in a much larger game. Because the real story isn't just what's happening. It's how it's being presented, and why. And that changes how you see not just this conflict, but the entire world. What's your take on this? Let me know in the comments below. And for more clear, honest, and thought-provoking news, don't forget to subscribe to America Daily.